The following is a true story of a man who was born in 1901 in Turin, Italy. As he grew into a young man, he developed a deep spiritual life, which he never hesitated to share with his friends. The Holy Eucharist and the Blessed Virgin Mary were the two pillars of his world of prayer. At the age of 17, the young man joined the St. Vincent de Paul Society and dedicated much of his spare time to serving the sick and the needy, caring for orphans, and assisting the wounded who were returning from World War I. Although he came from a middle-class family, as a young man, he chose to be close to the needy by becoming the porter of the poor, dragging carts loaded with household goods throughout the streets of Turin. As a member of the Conference of St. Vincent, he visited the neediest families, to whom he offered comfort and help. In the strong tensions of the first post-war period, he was engaged in a social apostolate. The young man had thought about the priesthood by choosing to live the vocation of holiness as a lay person, because his lifestyle allowed him to share closely in the world of workers and the poor through social action. His days were therefore divided between prayer, works of charity, study, and friends. He would run through the streets of Turin always on foot, because he offered in alms the money he received from his parents to pay for public transit so that the sick could buy medicine. His parents were often upset with him because he always arrived home late. He also donated his clothes to those who did not have any. The young man died at the age of 24 before graduating from university. Surprisingly, his parents were not aware of their son's charitable life until after his death. They learned about it from his friends and those whom he helped. The crowd at the funeral revealed to his family and the world his charitable life. This is the story of Saint Pier Giorgio Frassati, who was canonized a saint together with Saint Carlo Acutis this past September. In today's gospel, Jesus is in the town of Nain, 14 kilometers south of Nazareth. Jesus is with his disciples and a large crowd at the gate of the town when a funeral procession was passing through. A man who had passed away was being carried to his resting place. His name and age are not mentioned. The death of the man was an immense tragedy for his mother, because he was her only son and she was a widow. It might be difficult for us to understand the gravity of this situation for the widow. In those times, a woman without the support of a man by her side had no security or social protection. It meant being alone, vulnerable and exposed to judgment and marginalization. There was no future for her. The mother of the deceased might have been saying in her mind, "Why, Lord? Why me? Why now?" Little did she know God was right in front of her in that moment. An extraordinary event took place. A man whom she did not know looked at her with compassion and told her not to weep. On this occasion, no one asked Jesus to perform a miracle. In many gospel stories, Jesus performed miracles of healing the lame, the crippled, the blind, the deaf, when someone asked him. In today's gospel, Jesus sees the woman. He does not ignore her. He does not look away. Jesus looks at the widow, feels the pain in her heart, and has compassion for her. Moved by this deep compassion, he performs a miracle and returns the man to his mother. The compassion of Jesus is so profound. When in a state of suffering or pain, Jesus is closer to us than we can imagine. He is not a cold, distant, or indifferent God. He is a God whose heart can be easily touched, especially when we are suffering. In today's gospel, Jesus felt the pain and distress of the woman and said to her not to weep. The compassion of our Lord ended her tears with a miraculous event. Pope Francis, during a Mass homily, invited the faithful to open their hearts to compassion. He urged those present not to close themselves in indifference. Through compassion, we can alleviate the suffering of others by showing closeness and understanding, such as listening to someone who is going through a difficult time. Compassion means supporting a friend or a family member who is grieving the loss of a loved one, especially in the days following the funeral. When a calamity as an earthquake or hurricane hits, many will feel compassion for those involved in those events. Charity is an act of compassion. This past Thanksgiving, the food drive crate in the narthex of the church, organized by the Knights of Columbus, had to be emptied 5 times. The food donated is a compassionate act of charity towards those who are struggling to put food on the table. Thank you for your compassion and generosity. Jesus sees everyone's deeds of compassion. Besides compassion, there is also self-compassion. Self-compassion is learning to accept our mistakes by not being harsh with ourselves and treasuring mistakes as life experiences. Dedicating time to yourself, especially when you feel burnt out or overworked. Avoid isolation, especially in difficult or dark times. Surround yourself with the compassion of family and friends to get through those moments. Saint Pier Giorgio had compassion for the poor, the homeless, the sick, and many others who were suffering for different reasons. Out of compassion, he dedicated his entire life to helping others. Saint Pier Giorgio helped others with the little he had. He did not ask his parents for extra money or more clothing to donate. He used the resources that were available to him. It is remarkable how he kept everything hidden from his parents. They were unaware of his charitable life that opened the way to sainthood, becoming a saint 100 years after his death. On this commemoration of all the faithful departed, please offer your prayers to our Blessed Mother and all the saints to intercede for all the souls in purgatory, asking God to have compassion on them and grant them entry into the heavenly kingdom.